I'm a guy that's 24. Each day I build some more. I like episode 7 and episode 8. I'm Rich Boy J. Hello boyos, Rich Boy J here back in with another video, and today we're going to try something a little bit different. I'm actually going to walk you through my first ever Lego bricks and pieces order, and the reason I'm doing this is one, just to show you guys what I got, because I don't typically do haul videos on this channel, but also I want to give you a little insight into what parts I find useful and what I'm going to be using them for as a Star Wars builder. I think bricks and pieces is a great resource if you're trying to buy newer parts, ones that haven't been dispersed through sets, so thus the prices on Bricklink aren't great because people have to go out and buy the sets and part them out to put them on Bricklink. So if they haven't been around very long, then the price is going to be reflected in that. But Lego has pretty awesomely provided a solution to that with giving us bricks and pieces. So it's definitely an avenue you at least want to look into if you're buying Lego pieces, especially ones that like recently came out in the past 1 or 2 years, because you can often find some pretty good prices for them. Basically everything in this parts haul are things that I thought were significantly priced lower than what you would find on Bricklink. So let's go ahead and dive in. All right, so right out the bat, we have my Technic bricks poking out. These are 1x16 light bluish gray Technic bricks. I don't build a lot of Technic, but I mean, anyone who builds large structures knows that Technic is just awesome at providing some good structural integrity to those builds. And these parts are not cheap at all on Bricklink. Like on Bricklink, these are at least $1 each, oftentimes even more expensive than that. And I think I bought them for most like 80 cents, probably even cheaper than that here on Bricks and Pieces. So I just got 20 of these. It's just a good part, especially for someone who's often building ships, and light gray is a pretty safe color to use for structure if some part of this ends up sticking out or if it entirely ends up sticking out. So I like these 1x16 Technic bricks quite a bit for that reason. And next up, we literally have everything else. I'm honestly kind of surprised they shipped this way. Like, it's like Technic bricks, cool, we can sort those, and then everything else. So let me go ahead and get this sorted some way, and we can talk a little bit more about the parts I got. First, we're gonna start off with these arch pieces up here. I believe I got 10 of these. I literally just got this piece to go on my N3rd Naboo starfighters. Even until this point, this is a pretty rare piece. It just recently came out in this color. Well, not necessarily, it came out originally, I believe, in the yellow submarine set, which is since retired, and Lego was putting it into more sets, but it's still a pretty difficult piece to get a hold of in a decent quantity. So I went ahead and got 10 because I plan on building even more of N3rd's Naboo starfighter mocks. So glad to have this. It was a very elusive part. I went ahead and picked up 30 or so of these. It's the 2x2 plate with 2 knobs or 2x2 tile with 2 knobs. I guess it depends on how you look at it, but this is just a good piece for a lot of vehicles and I think chairs specifically. It's nice that it's a 2x2 with only 2 studs because you can just sit a minifig on it and pull the minifig off without pulling up the entire chair, and this just works for like paneling on certain vehicles. So that will definitely make a good addition to my collection. I also picked up 10 or so of these. This is just a good Greebling piece. It's a 1x1 round plate with a bar sticking out of it. And you'll notice a common theme in this video. I picked up a lot of Greebling pieces. One thing that you'll notice with bricks and pieces is a lot of the smaller parts have a really good value for high quantities, especially compared to Bricklink. So you're gonna notice that be a common theme throughout this video. A lot of parts that I've gathered are specifically for Greebling on Lego Star Wars vehicles. This part right here, oh my God, these black binoculars have such an incredible value if you're getting these on Bricks and Pieces. The Bricklink price for 20 of these is 88 cents, which is insane. It's almost $1 each for these. However, on Bricks and Pieces, they were just 13 cents. So the value right there alone kind of justifies a lot of what I bought in this haul, because for whatever reason, this is just an elusive part. Now, as for what I plan on using these on, this is the piece that's actually used on the guns on the CIS AAT build that I reviewed. So I'm planning on building more of those. It'll be nice to have these. And these are actually also used on the sides of Jarek's Special Forces and normal First Order TIE Fighters. So I need these for both of those vehicles because I plan on building more of both of those. The light bluish gray binoculars aren't nearly as bad when it comes to the Bricklink price versus the Bricks and Pieces price, but this is still just a really good Lego Star Wars Greebling part, just detail part in general. I know this is on Brickright's Y-Wing mock that I have built, and I'm kind of considering building either another one of those or just building 2 of Jarek's Y-Wings. Still need to decide. Jarek's is definitely a better build in some places, but I think Brickright's cockpit section, or I guess it's technically Entherd's cockpit section, actually looks a bit better. So I'm gonna see about that, but I know I'll definitely need these for the engines, and just in general, this is just a great Greebling part for Lego Star Wars builds. Next up is probably the piece I was most excited to get, these brand new quarter circle bow pieces. I'm not honestly sure how to describe these. These are used on the new Pose X-Wing. I got 24 of them because you need 8 on a given X-Wing. So I basically have the ones from Pose X-Wing, and then I'll have these to build a total of 4 custom X-Wings using these pieces. I'm gonna need them for Starkiller. Starkiller is gonna have a few Resistance X-Wing mocks, so these are definitely what I'm gonna want to use for the engines on those. Because this piece is basically just in one set now, the value you're gonna find on Bricks and Pieces is gonna be significantly better than what you would find on Bricklink. Quarter circle tiles in dark orange and light bluish gray. The reason I got both of these was Geonosis. I think whenever I actually do that mock down the line, these would probably be useful for that. So I just went ahead and grabbed some because why not? And then light bluish gray, this is also just a good detail piece for Lego Star Wars vehicles and maybe some technical aspects of the build. Like I can probably find some interesting like cargo crate designs that I can use for these, just various small assemblies. I think these are just super useful for, and they're also useful for lettering. Like I don't build a lot of things where I'm actually having to use tiles for custom lettering, but these are just excellent for that. So I was happy to pick those up. I also did pick a few of these up. This is one of those parts that actually the value on Bricklink was a little bit better than the Bricks and Pieces value, but it wasn't by much, so I don't feel, you know, bad for buying this by any means. But this is just a super useful piece. Like when I first saw it, I was like, oh, it's kind of a weird looking piece, but I've run into building situations, for example, the rock walls that I've designed on Starkiller, where this is actually a super useful and straightforward solution to getting those rock walls standing up the way I need them because they're kind of built snot. So super useful piece. I didn't necessarily need to buy this from Bricks and Pieces, but I'm happy I got it nonetheless. This is such a useful piece. I'm so glad that Lego started making this. This isn't a brand new piece, but it's a newer piece, and it's so useful. Like in so many of the recent builds I've done, I've used so many of these. I feel like I burned through these so quickly, which is weird to think about considering like for a lot of my mock building career, this piece didn't even exist. But I really like this piece. It's just a nice way to offset builds by half a stud. I mean, that's really what jumpers are for. But because this is a 1x3 to 2 studs jumper, you know, if you need that offset, but you still need, you know, more than a 1 stud connection, this is the perfect solution to that. So I love this piece so much. They actually just sent me this, I'm assuming it's a Ninjago or Chima torso. Honestly, have no idea. I didn't ask for it, obviously, but they just threw it in. So I don't know, is this a common thing that they do? They just throw in a random torso? Someone please let me know. So somehow only ended up with 1 bucket. I definitely wanted a lot more than 1, but I guess I just forgot to increase the quantity. But this is just another good Greebling piece for vehicles, or it's just a good bucket piece. Like it's a good just piece to have as a bucket in itself. I really do like this piece. It's a nice conical shape, so it can be used to capture a lot of the circular shapes we find on Lego Star Wars vehicles. I like these because they flow so well with 2x2 tiles and 2x4 tiles. With a lot of the recent builds I've been doing that just have light bluish gray color schemes and just light bluish gray tiles for the paneling on them, this has been a super useful piece. Like with my Razor Crest, I think I may have used some of these on my Corvus as well. Super useful piece, so I'm glad to add a bit more of these to my collection. Next up, I got a bunch of these 1x1 half circle tiles. These are super useful. I use a ton of these in white on my Vardos mock for the Death Star wall pattern that was on a lot of those buildings. So I like that, and specifically in light bluish gray, I think it's just a good Greebling part for Star Wars vehicles. It's a specific shape you can use for some good texturing on Star Wars vehicles. It's just a really good, useful piece for LEGO Star Wars. I did pick up 4 of these BB9E heads in light bluish gray. Once again, another just good Greebling piece. Like I said, half of these are just literally just Greebling pieces, and this one specifically was not cheap on Bricklink compared to the bricks and pieces price. So I was super happy to get this, and I don't know what vehicle I plan on building anytime soon that's going to be like bluish gray, but I'm definitely going to have a lot of options for Greebling on it. So I was happy to pick these up. Shout out to my guy Trevor actually for recommending me to pick this piece up. I got a bunch of these sandwich tiles in black. This is another newer Star Wars piece, and this just works so well for doing, you know, interesting patterns on floors or just getting a 45-degree angle on a wedge plate. I've always said that it'd be nice if LEGO made wedge tiles, just because, you know, when you're building Star Wars, you end up with using a lot of wedge plates, but those are almost always the one place on the mock, or at least my mocks, that have studs on them. So I'd like a solution like wedge tiles, and this is definitely useful in that manner. And I got these in black because on Starkiller, a lot of the interior floors are actually black, so I'm figuring if I ever have walls that have to basically be at a 45-degree angle, this might be a good way to have the floor go straight up to it, depending on how that wall has to be built. So it's just a useful piece overall. I like this piece a lot. I got 20 of this piece that LEGO likes to simply call Fez. I have no idea why. But it's a nice cone-shaped piece. I actually like this because I think if you stack a bunch of these together in brown, you get a nice palm tree aesthetic. It's obviously not what I'm going to be using these for. But because LEGO doesn't make that classic palm tree trunk piece anymore, I think this is a viable alternative that's actually a piece you can buy right now and that LEGO is actually producing. For me, these are light bluish gray because, once again, Greebling, just a super good looking Greebling piece. Yeah, I love that it's cone shaped. If you're a LEGO Star Wars builder, you find yourself having to incorporate a lot of things that are shaped like this into just vehicle builds, I feel. I also picked up these 1x3 wall panels. This is a good piece because before there was no real way to have like an odd numbered wall panel lined up. Like there's not a 1x1 of this. So to have a 1x3 that's like this is actually super useful. It's kind of surprising it took LEGO so long to come out with something like this, but I'm glad they did, and I added a few of these to my collection because the Bricklink prices on these things are just absurd. Oh yes, the light bluish gray lever pieces. I've talked about these a few times on my channel. These were a part that existed way back in the day, not really way back in the day, but back in the day, kind of, they were on the UCS Star Destroyer, the UCS Millennium Falcon, the original versions of those vehicles. So whenever people would try to part those sets out to like build them, like these pieces were needed in insane quantities, which really raised the price of them. And even to this day, like the prices of these things are still ridiculous. I think I got these for 20 cents on Bricklink. If you want any decent amount of these, more than like a couple, you're going to be paying at least $1, which is outrageous. So I'm super excited that LEGO finally reintroduced these into their production. These were in the newest Star Destroyer set, and I went ahead and got, I think, at least 20 of them because it's just a super useful Greebling piece. It's nice to just have a light bluish gray lever for detail, as well as to just use as a functional lever in a Star Wars vehicle. So super excited to have these in. It feels so nice to not have to, you know, pay insane prices for these parts. I picked up a few of these 2x2 light bluish gray tiles with a 45-degree cut in them. These are once again just useful for paneling on Star Wars vehicles, or just even creating interesting looking floor patterns, I think. This wasn't a piece with a huge discrepancy between Bricklink and Bricks and Pieces price-wise, but I saw them and I was like, you know what, I'll just get these. I never buy these. Let me go ahead and put some of those in my collection. I did get some of these 1x2 curved plates in light bluish gray and dark bluish gray, and in terms of functionality, these pieces are like a game changer for LEGO and mock building, I feel. I used these actually to build the spiraling staircase on the Snoke's Throne Room and Star Killer. These were basically the pieces I used under them to get that curved shape, and it just works so well because you can just get so many different, like, you know, radii of circles with these. So that alone makes them useful. But I also like to think of these as a good stone piece, like on Octo, for example, Luke's hut. If you wanted to build that and you wanted, you know, a nice round shape with it, and you know, you'd be able to basically build something like this, and it has a decent looking stone pattern. So if you're wanting to do like old fantasy style castle inspired builds, I think these are just so useful for stone buildings, and in terms of just functionality, it's a super useful piece. So super excited to add these into my collection. I picked up a few of these 1x2 curved slopes with a cut in them. I actually got them going both directions, and the prices for these on Bricklink, it was like twice as expensive on Bricklink to get these. So super excited about these. The most recent thing that I've used these for were actually on Big Snoke's hands. It's a super useful piece in that, and it's also just a good piece for Star Wars vehicles. Anything that honestly has an angle on it is going to be pretty useful for a Lego Star Wars vehicle build. I picked up quite a few of these 1x1 plates with the handle on them. I like these because, one, they're functional. It's basically the reverse of the 1x1 with a clip. So, and for that alone, it's a good piece. But then it's also a good Greebling piece. You know, you can sit this on a ship this way, even flip it if you'd like, and it just looks pretty good as a small, unique looking Star Wars Greebling piece. I also picked up a few of these 1x1 bracket pieces. These are just useful because they're 1x1 bracket pieces. It's not a 1x2. It's a 1x1 bracket piece. This is a newer piece in LEGO's part catalog, so they're not in a ton of sets yet, but they're starting to find their way into more and more sets, and I think it's a super useful part, especially for vehicles. You end up having to use bracket pieces for structure or just to, you know, get things to be snot, and I like that. It's a good, useful piece in that regard. I did pick up 20 of these 1x16 light bluish gray Technic bricks, as I mentioned earlier. So this is one I actually made a mistake on. I got this one wrong. This piece is actually quite a bit cheaper on Bricklink. I think the bricks and pieces price I paid was 87 cents. These are actually 68 cents on Bricklink for at least 20. It's not that big of a difference where I feel bad for buying these, but I just thought wrong. Like I just remember these being a lot more expensive than they currently are, which is not a huge deal because these are still super useful for me. But if you are buying Technic bricks for the light bluish gray 1x16s, it's probably a better idea to go with Bricklink. And the final piece we have here is a piece where it's definitely smarter to go with bricks and pieces. These are 4x4 quarter dome pieces. These are super useful. Domes in Star Wars are just useful pieces. They just are. But this is a specific shape or size rather, that LEGO's only put into one set. It's only in the Droid Commander set, which is an expensive set, right? I got 16 of these, and there's not even a seller on Bricklink that has 16 of these, at least in the United States. So this worked out super well for me. These were 79 cents for me to get on Bricks and Pieces. The seller who had the most of them on Bricklink in the US, and there's only one seller, I think, we're charging $1.37 for these. So almost double the price. I don't want to pay that for this, but I was pretty happy with the 79 cents, especially for a piece that's literally only in one set right now. So super great value on these, and it's just a good combination of pieces to use to make domes. I love that we're getting domes of varying sizes. I think this probably would have been a much better piece to use on the UCS. I think this probably would have been a much better piece to use on the UCS Y-Wing. The engines on those compared to the cockpit size, I think could probably be a bit bigger. I think this maybe would have been the perfect solution for that. But either way, this is a great piece, and I'm glad to have 16 of these in my possession. I feel so powerful having so many of these. But that's gonna finish up this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed taking a closer, in-depth look of what parts I'm buying, what parts I think are useful from Bricks and Pieces. Obviously, Bricklink is typically my go-to source for LEGO Star Wars pieces, but I think as I've shown you in this video, If you haven't made a bricks and pieces order, it is certainly worth looking into, especially for a lot of these newer pieces that aren't in a ton of sets. The value is just so much better on bricks and pieces, especially for larger quantities. So if you guys haven't done it, I definitely urge you, go check out bricks and pieces. It's finally opened back up in the United States. I can't speak to other countries. I know there are still at least some places where it's not open back up, but whenever it does, definitely give it a look, because you'll find some great newer parts on there that you aren't finding for decent prices, that you either aren't finding on Bricklink or you aren't finding for a decent price on Bricklink. But that's gonna finish things up. If you guys like what I do, go ahead and support the video by hitting the like button, support the channel by smashing the subscribe button, and I'll be back again very soon.